So we are so excited to have our next speaker, who is Fidda Haddad. She is FAO's Dryland Forest Officer, and she will be talking about how do you integrate trees into these systems, particularly in drylands. So, Fidda, over to you, and thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you so much for inviting me to the important discussion today to raise the awareness about the integrated land use, land planning system, including trees, livestock, and different actors. I want first to highlight that between 2015 2017, maybe most of you were part of the first global dryland assessments, where the more than 200 experts all over the world managed to assess the dryland, the trees and forests in dryland systems. But before I start and give an overview of that global assessment and move into practical cases in Africa, recently, FAO, through the forest resource assessment surveys, confirms that even though we have a slowdown in global deforestation, dryland forests in Africa represented still the area of the second highest level of global deforestation between 2000 and 2018, with around 49 million hectares after South America, which represents 68 million hectares of deforestation. Now, the second main cause of that deforestation is the grazing, or because of the livestock. Here we have to focus on no more time. We don't have that time to wait until have more deforestation and more impact of climate change. We don't need to provide the implication of such deforestation. And we know also that, for example, in Africa, we know how much African drylands have a great variety of trees, shrubs, grasses, and how much shrubs and trees are often better nutritional value for livestock. So here we have to consider all of these actors. A great survey done in northern Nigeria, rapid rural appraisal was used to determine the importance of reviving the silvopastoralism in northern Nigeria. They found that the communities managed to improve their non-forest timber product to enhance the silvopastoralism in their areas. As well in Senegal, when hundreds of villages over 30 years managed to restore their degraded shrubs and transform them into more savannas landscape and increase the woody cover. Between different, let's say, regions in Africa, either in Southern Africa, where pastoralism is still practiced, but unfortunately, due to the large scale of industrial livestock farming, that's banning a lot of land degradation and the pastoralism activities. Same in Eastern Africa, for example, most of the conservation activities also banning the pastoralism in West Africa. And as my colleagues already, the previous panelists mentioned, all of these challenges around different parts in Africa, and giving the example of Zambia. But I want also to mention that also in Africa, based on the latest assessment presented by FAO, also has a presumed dryland. And maybe this is not, it's a new old definition of an extra category on drylands, which is called presumed dryland, where make the drylands is 48% more than 40 if we count the presumed dryland, which is 7% of the whole globe. Now, why I am raising this point of dryland? Because presumed drylands, to see that even these new categories, the best percentage, the highest percentage, sorry, is forest and grassland. So still we need to consider the integration of forest, trees, and livestock in the management. And the assessment showed also that the second largest area of presumed dryland is in Africa, which is the Miombo-Mopane woodland ecosystem, where the forests under this presumed dryland, around 44% of the whole presumed dryland in Miombo-Mopane. And most of these lands located in Tanzania, Mozambique, Angola, and Zambia. So here what we didn't, to influence more the concept of importance of silvopastoralism to sustain the presumed dryland as well, the whole ecosystem of Miombo-Mopane, we did economic valuation assessment to check how to value the ecosystem services in Miombo-Mopane and convince the decision makers on the importance of integrated the silvopastoralism in their planning managements. To go quickly over this, the case I will present just in one slide is about the Tanzania, where we looked into the doing an economic valuation to assess how farmer natural managed regeneration can contribute to increase trees cover in Tanzania and as well improve the silvopastoralism activities. As I mentioned before, the presumed drylands, it's between the Mozambique, Tanzania, Angola, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, but here I will focus only on Tanzania. And the economic valuation that we conducted here, we looked into two scenarios. In case we will continue working on the land degradation neutrality scenario, or we keep the business as usual, where forester works alone, livestock works alone, on-farm activities alone. So a quick assessment that we assess the value of regenerating the tree cover under two scenarios, as I mentioned. The first one was under the land degradation neutrality scenario 1, where we stipulating a stabilization of the current tree cover within the cropland and the activities of silvopastoralism that the farmers are using on their farm. And the second land degradation neutrality scenario was on if we increase the canopy cover of trees up to 2000 levels, or if we will keep it as it is. So we found that the regeneration of trees canopy within the farmlands increase up to 250 kilogram per hectare, which is around 16 to 37 euro per hectare. It is nothing for sure. Like if we want to convince and influence the practice, but the point here is that the community practice, traditional knowledge, when they manage to provide and to sustain their on-farm activities, and they relied on their on-farm timber and non-timber products to support their economic revenues, that encouraged also the Tanzanian government to think more of their laws and regulations. So recently, of course, one of the gaps, before I forget to mention that to make sure that this kind of system, the farmer managed natural regeneration or pastoralist managed natural regeneration, needs security, land security or access to the land to support these kinds of activities. But here where the Tanzanian governments revised or look again into their forest acts and include in their mandates and called for village forest reserve, where the communities will manage their forest, will manage their own farm in collaboration with the governments. I mean, here it's just to show that even in the silvopastoralism, even small action can make the big difference. But we need to connect the dots between the different actors and the different actions to ensure that holistic management is at a scale and can reflect on different, let's say, sectors. I know that I'm the last speaker here. I will leave it to the next panel to discuss more about our grazing with trees activities. Thank you.
Congratulations on getting this work published for us all to see these many case studies that you have from around the world.